How's it going, guys? My name is Chris Mo. If you don't know me, I do $1 to $2 million in construction sales, got a 6-figure income, some passive investments, and I have nothing to sell you. You see, I make these videos so I can document my life towards becoming a millionaire, so I can help my grandchildren out. And if I can help others along the way, so be it. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 7 levels of financial freedom and how I managed to jump through them to make my life better. These are the 7 steps that every 20-year-old needs to know before they start their journey towards financial independence. So without further ado, let's get started. The problem in today's world is that 50% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Most people never get out of level 2 in the 7-step process, which is why they always think that life is unfair. You see, I tend to see life like a video game, and every single time you level up, your life gets better. You see, I'm a hard believer in creating plans and knowing what your next step is. That way, you can make the right decisions towards your end goal. Like many others, I want to be financially free so I can have different options to do the things that I actually enjoy out of life. Over the last couple of years, I've been jumping through these levels towards financial freedom, and I'll explain to you how I did that. Let's start with level 1. Level 1 is clarity. This is where you figure out exactly where you are financially. Most people have the tendency of trying to figure everything out in their heads and never really write things down. Some people even choose to ignore or just never pay attention to their finances. That's actually the problem that most young adults face. Coming into the adult world, nobody really teaches us about saving or investing. We kind of just spend all the money that comes in. See, I started working at 16 years old, and I learned the importance of money at a really early age. I learned that life is just a matter of addition and subtraction, which is the amount of money you make minus the amount of money that you spend is what you keep. Level 1 is the easiest one to jump. All you have to really do is just take a step back, calculate how much money you make minus your expenses, and that total amount is gonna give you the amount you have to play with or invest, or better yet, just save. Level 2 is self-sufficiency. This is where you moved out of your parents' house and now you have to support your own self and cover your own expenses. For many young adults, this is kind of like the dream. At least it was for me, because I lived in a really small house where it wasn't really that comfortable. I remember at one point, our bathroom door was literally a closet door, and the bathroom was so small that all you can really do is move left and right. Yeah, it wasn't the best places to live. It was a really small house in a really bad neighborhood. There's many different ways to get out of this level, even if you live in an expensive place like Los Angeles. The way you would approach this is using the same simple calculator. It's really not that hard. All you have to do is figure out how much money you make minus the cost of living and the cost of all your expenses, and that's it. There's really only 2 variables in the whole equation, which you can ultimately manipulate to your choosing. The first variable is the income variable. The income variable can vary depending on the occupation that you have, but you can always increase it. And the way you would increase it is just becoming more valuable by getting a skill and showing employers that you're actually more of an asset and you're more valuable to the team. That way they can increase your pay and pay you a lot more. The second variable is expenses, which you can also control. Depending on where you live, rents are going to be different. Here in LA, if you lived on your own, you'll be paying anywhere from $1,200 to $2,000 if you decided to live on your own. Which, if you're just starting out, I would suggest getting roommates, which can lower the rent anywhere from like $500 to $1,200, which is way more doable even on a minimum wage job. Of course, we all have to eat, so that's also an expense that you can throw in there and kind of calculate it based on whatever you want to go ahead and eat. But ultimately, you can go ahead and manipulate your rent and how much you eat. Besides that, that's really all you kind of need to survive in life. Of course, there's like phone bills, electric bills, things like that, but all of those can also be manipulated. There's luxuries in those expenses that we really don't kind of need. Level 2 is actually pretty simple. All you gotta do is just do the simple calculation for your city. But many people actually struggle with this because they fear the fact of being independent. And it really all comes down to believing in yourself. And if you can't do that, then you have a whole different problem. I was able to get out of this level by going off to college. I had roommates. At one point, I had like 3 jobs, just being able to pay my rent for my apartments. And ultimately, I was able to get to this level at just the age of 18 by taking on these risks and just being on my own. The reason why 50% of Americans stay on this level is because they ultimately do not control that one variable, which is the income variable. If you don't fix that income variable and raise it, then you're always going to be stuck on this level, which brings me to level 3, the breathing room. This is where you're no longer living paycheck to paycheck and you're able to save some money and put it away. Most people struggle to get to this level because they never make themselves valuable. They get stuck at their low-paying job and never really improve themselves. In order to get to this level, you have to get what I like to call a big boy job. Let's just say you were an employee at one time. You've been working really hard, and ultimately you became a manager. By doing that transition, becoming a manager, becoming someone more valuable in a company, you ultimately get a pay raise, which is ultimately going to allow you to save more. However, with a bigger paycheck, people fall into the biggest dangers of life: lifestyle inflation. Meaning the second variable that we talked about, expenses, goes up and increases with our wages. So we never really feel as if our new wage really helped us out. This is really important to be aware of because ultimately it won't allow us to really save money in order to jump to the next level. Level 3 comes with something that everyone hates to do, which is delayed gratification. This is the level that you still have to sacrifice, meaning you still have to live as if you're a college student and save as much as you possibly can and continue living that minimal lifestyle in order for you to save and jump to that next level. I know I struggled, and I was a victim myself of lifestyle inflation because I know when I got a better job, when I started working, one day I started working at T-Mobile where I got a higher hourly wage and I was now getting paid commission. This allowed me to quit my 3 jobs and ultimately make the most amount of money that I had ever made at that time. So I always felt like I had an extra amount to spare, which ultimately caused me not even to save because ultimately I was still living paycheck to paycheck because of the things that I would buy. I bought like a new car, I would buy clothes, and I would spend all my money on just little dumb things all the time. I hope none of you fall into lifestyle inflation because this is ultimately not going to allow you to jump into level 4. Level 4 is stability. This is where you have no debt and you have at least 6 months of savings for all of your expenses. If you fall victim of lifestyle inflation, this is where people start getting into credit card debt. The problem with that is that life happens sometimes. There are times where random expenses just come up, like a medical bill, a flat tire, a broken phone. Life just happens. And when life happens, we have to be prepared. The way we prepare for this is to continue to increase our income variable and decrease or maintain our expense variable for at least a year. And it's really not that hard. Let's say, for example, you manage to save at least $500 a month. That's about $6,000 in a year, which if your rent is at least $1,000, that's at least 6 months worth of rent. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say that it should be more than 6 months, it should be a year. And you know, it really all depends on your lifestyle and who you are and how you live. Now, I achieved this level about 4 years ago when I officially got my big boy job. And I got into this industry where it's high ticket sales for selling residential construction. Ultimately, my first year I did about $50,000. I was able to knock out all my debt and start to save and invest my money. I managed to have over $10,000 in just savings alone. And ultimately, I was able to do this by just controlling those 2 variables, increasing my income and maintaining my low expenses. And that's really how I managed to get this far in life. Level 5 is called flexibility. Now, this level can take some time depending on your income level and your variable expense level and how much you're saving. They say that you have to have at least 2 years of expenses saved up, which would allow you ultimately to take 1 whole entire year off. Now, for this level, ultimately, I kind of find this level useless because I personally like to work all the time and I really wouldn't want to take a year off. And ultimately, to go ahead and try to just save 2 years worth of expenses, you're better off investing, not really saving. So I feel like this level can you can kind of skip it and ultimately not really like care about it. But for those people who want to be stringent and follow that 7 path, then it is technically considered a level. And ultimately, for this level, there's really nothing more than still continuing to use that same simple calculator, just increasing your income and decreasing or maintaining your same expense. And ultimately, there's really only one way to kind of do this. And that's just really working hard and just giving it some time. And the way I managed to get to this level is ultimately just by working hard, working 6 days a week, getting really good at my craft, getting really good at selling, and really becoming more valuable in my company, where ultimately after my first year, my second year, I did over $100,000 in profit for myself. So I made over 6 figures just my second year. My third year I made over 6 figures, and I've been making 6 figures ever since. Ultimately, I never went ahead and increased my expense variable, and I continue to just increase my income variable, and I managed to save and just invest and continue living that college lifestyle. And that's really how I managed to go ahead and get to level 5. But it really wasn't easy, especially because right around the time that I got into this industry, that's when COVID hit. Now, my first couple of months was right the year before COVID hit. I didn't know what was gonna happen. Ultimately, I was going through hell, and that's when I stopped doing this whole entire content creating stuff, and ultimately really toned down on just doubling down on being better at my craft, was just selling. I was blessed with a really good opportunity, and I took advantage of that opportunity by really just working my ass off every single day. I have to say that it wasn't easy, but ultimately it paid off, because now I'm in a really good position, and if it wasn't for that struggle, I really wouldn't be where I'm at now. Which brings me to level 6, which is ultimately the level that everyone kind of wants to get to. This is the level where you can go ahead and start to live off just your investments, meaning your investments are bringing you in monthly profits to allow you to pay for all of your expenses. Now again, this can vary depending on your type of lifestyle, but if you follow this simple formula by controlling those 2 variables, you should have saved up a lot of money from the ages of 18 to 25 if you started early. Now this is where you start to be smart with your money, and you start learning all the different ways to start investing your money, whether it's real estate, stocks, or my favorite businesses. Early 2021, I managed to find a deal with someone who was trying to sell their route because they were trying to get out of the area. I created a seller finance deal where I was able to just put $5,000 down and literally finance the whole entire deal at 0 interest of equal payments for at least a year, where I was able to learn the whole entire business. Fast forward to today, I have now 10 ATMs, which cash flow about $1,500 a month. In reality, since I'm still living that college lifestyle, meaning I still have a roommate and I have my expenses really low, I kind of made it to this level just by solely continuing to live that college lifestyle. And the reason I kind of say I manipulated my way towards level 6 is because I've been able to maintain my expenses under what my ATMs make. Ultimately, I pay less than $1,000 in rent. My expenses are about less than $500. Ultimately, if I get rid of my 2 cars, which are soon going to be paid off, and once that's kind of like done, I've kind of made it to level 6, where technically, if I don't suffer from lifestyle inflation and move on to a nicer place and increase my rent and my expenses, technically I've reached level 6. But ultimately, this is just like the bare minimum of being financially free, and there's other like ways to be financially free. Again, it all depends on your lifestyle and what you really want out of like your way of living. However, this is not the end goal. We still have to jump to level 7. The final level is financial abundance. Level 7 is currently what I'm trying to figure out now. This is where money isn't a concern and you have more than what you need. I've done the math and I've thought about it, and really the way to get to this level is doing that same simple calculator, figuring out a way to increase your income, keep your expenses low, and literally the only thing standing in your way from then is just time. That's it. To get to this level, it's gonna require time. And that's the thing that a lot of us tend to forget. We become impatient and we want things really fast. And ultimately, we forget that the good things in life take time. At this point in my life, I've come to the conclusion that there's really no such thing as a get-rich-quick scheme. You really have to put in the long hours to get to this level. But I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen those young, successful entrepreneurs, some people who have already made it at our age or even at an early age. But ultimately, those are like the rare ones. And it doesn't happen for everyone. There's a book called The Outliers, and it tells us that there's gonna be some people who on rare occasion, I mean, I wouldn't say they got lucky, but they're one of the very few who get it early. And that's just it. Like, life is unfair. Deal with it. There's gonna be some people, it's sort of like are athletes, right? We know for a fact that there's Michael Jordans, there's Kobe Bryant's, there's all these great like people who are well known in history to be the very, very best. But ultimately, not everyone is like them, right? There's just those rare ones. It's the same thing for business. There's gonna be some rare people who make it really early, and that's okay. For everyone else, like myself, we're just gonna have to work really, really hard and just wait for our turn to get there. But as long as we're moving and controlling those two variables, we eventually do get there. So I'll kind of end it with this, like, don't believe everything that you see online, because a lot of people, especially in today's world, they're just lying. People are just putting out there and kind of feeding people what they want to see and what they want to hear because it sells, it's marketable. Not everyone's rich, not everyone has all this successful life. People are just flaunting. In reality, if you start looking at the statistics, there's not a lot of successful people out there, and the people that are really successful, you can hear it in their voice. And I kind of know who is and who isn't, just because I understand business now. And ultimately, that's why I start these videos, because I kind of want to just move away from a lot of the bullshit that's out there. And ultimately, that's always going to be there because it's always been there. If you look at history, it's always been there. So don't fall for the trap of a lot of people just trying to sell you courses, just trying to go ahead and get you to get rich quick scheme. It takes time and it takes a lot of hard work. Like the simple calculator that we used here, success has a simple calculator too, with just two variables as well, which is time plus hard work equals success. You manipulate those two variables and I guarantee you're gonna be successful. And that's it, guys. Those are the 7 levels towards financial freedom. I hope this video helped you guys carve out the steps that you need in order to jump to the next level, wherever it is that you are in the whole entire 7 steps. And if you're in one of those levels that are struggling, don't mind leaving a comment, shoot me a DM, and we can discuss on how you can jump to the next level. Ultimately, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.